Bases dropped on Soccer's morning show. Soccer down here. John, hear you there. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, I had a list, and usually what I do when I prepare the show, I'll have like topics and where to grab and all these kinds of things, and it's like, okay, we'll do this and this and this and this and this. So in a broad sense, we're going to be talking a lot about MLS transfers because they are happening. We're going to be talking about obviously gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Folks who are dropping into new teams. Folks, you're still wondering why they don't have folks. Morning, Alec. We got stuff in AFCON. We got stuff from Toronto. We got stuff from overseas. And yesterday we talked a lot about Reading, and we'll revisit it today because the owner decided to pop off. And we will get into his particular comments. And morning, Will. I saw Will had a question, and it's probably going to be the QOD once we get out of opening kickoff for all of you to think about going forward. Will had an Atlanta United question for those of you that got to see on the Twitters. And, yeah, Amelia, that's kind of where we were, debating what's going on. So we got to talk about Reading because the owner continues to be an idiot. And we got to talk about what's going on at Everton. 777 partners, sorry, Tom, had a deep dive on Yosemite Football had a deep dive on 777 partners, and it ain't good. So we'll get into that, plus all of the other news of the morning. Once again, Everton and Forest, they're looking at FFP. They're staring at that right in the crosshairs of their daily operations. And Tom is already fired up about what's going on with Everton. Like I said, we'll be getting into that coming up in just a little bit. Richard Masters got to sit in front of politicians, morning forecard, and we'll go over what he said this morning as well. But first, obviously, the news from the overnight, and it's not even opening kickoff material, but I guess it probably is developing into that. But opening kickoff material, let's go here. Jose Mourinho sacked by Roma. Came across in the overnight. And Daniela De Rossi has been appointed on a short-term gig to the end of the season with the option of a contract extension of another year. He'd been at the helm, meaning Mourinho, since the summer of 2021, guided him to the Europa Conference League title in 22, Europa League final the following year. Struggled domestically, sitting ninth in the top flight. Sunday's 3-1 loss at Milan was their third defeat in 5 league matches. Proved to be Mourinho's final one as boss. And once again, remember, they mentioned De Rossi to be the replacement until the end of the year. De Rossi was most recently in charge of Serie B side Spal before being dismissed in February. 22 points off of Inter in the standings. They've won just 8 of 20 league matches to date this campaign, losing 7. Eliminated from the Coppa Italia last week, suffering a 1-0 loss to Lazio. Finished his 6th place in each of Mourinho's 2 full seasons in charge. Recent run, which has seen successive league away defeats at Bologna, Juve, and Milan, had them drop to 9th. Once again, he did lead Roma to their first European title since the Intercity Fairs Cup in 1961, when they beat Feyenoord in the final of the Conference League in 22. Roma came close to winning their first ever Europa League, but they were edged out in PKs by Sevilla. Statement from Roma's Dan and Ryan Friedkin. Quote, "We'd like to thank Jose on behalf of all of us at AS Roma for his passion and effort since his arrival at the club. Blah, 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 blah." Asked if it was a surprise, James Horncastle over at The Athletic. In terms of results, no. Worst season in Serie A in more than 2 decades. 5 points out of Champions League spaces. They've never qualified there under Mourinho. Obviously, the loss in the Coppa Italia hurt. Up until then, according to Horncastle, Mourinho's popularity among fans was godlike, and the club owners were under pressure to extend his deal. Decision was courageous, according to Friedkin. They've seized the moment. No one can argue this is the worst period of Mourinho's 2.5 years at the club. Jose Mourinho sacked very, very early this morning by the Friedkins at Roma. And this begs the question. It begs the question about Jose Mourinho. I mean, you know that the league that we neither discuss or cover in depth, they want him. They want him. They want him to come over, and they want him to be a part of the discussion. It's like, bruh, come on over. So now what? And is there a 3-year, basically with Mourinho, you get into year 3 and you're done. This is literally how this has gone as far back as anybody can remember with Jose Mourinho. You look at his career. Lasted a season at Union de Liria. 2002 to 04, Porto. 04 to 07, Chelsea. 08 to 010, Inter Milan. 10 to 13, Real Madrid. 13 to 15, Chelsea. 16 to 18, Manchester United. 19 to 21, Spurs. 21 to 24, Roma. 4 clubs in a row. He's been sacked because of bad results, not because of wanting to go to the next big thing. Trophies won 3 of the 4. The league positions of the teams upon his dismissal: 16th when he was at Chelsea, 6th at Manchester United, 7th at Spurs, 9th at Roma. Won trophies at 3 of the 4. Didn't win one at Spurs. Nick Miller, in an op-ed, any club president, owner, chairperson, CEO of a reasonably sized club will, at the very least, pause for thought before picking up the phone. Is it worth the trouble? Is the short-term success he'll probably bring be worth the emotional battering you will take? Someone will always press the big red button marked Jose. It's a short-term game now. Why even think about the 3rd year? Never mind beyond it. Only 5 current Premier League managers have been in charge for longer than that anyway. 4 in La Liga, 2 in Serie A. Miller says he might be running on fumes of his genius these days, but fumes can still get you somewhere. Remains popular with the people. Roma fans still love him. There's a piece of that still is there. Saudi Arabia, according to Miller. Newcastle, Alex, sorry. What about that one, Alex? Newcastle. Eddie Howe. If Eddie Howe continues to have issues and the PIF freak out, not looking at the injury situation, would you, Alex, take Jose Mourinho as your lawfully wedded next manager? Would you do that? Miller says Eddie Howe's position doesn't appear to be in any immediate peril, but if results continue to follow the current path, that might change. Newcastle's owners haven't been drawn in by star power yet, so Mourinho would be an out-of-character appointment, but at some point they could adopt the attitude they needed someone to take them to the next level, in quotes. However misguided the idea of Mourinho being that man could be. Chelsea, Miller says it sounds silly, but don't rule it out completely. Lack of progress might not be all Mauricio Pochettino's fault, but their owner's patience will only stretch so far. Alex, no thank you. 30% of Chelsea fans in a recent survey said they would take Mourinho back. Real Madrid, Ancelotti signed a new deal. According to Miller, contracts matter little to Florentino Perez. Porto, an emotional return to the club where he had his first dazzling success, feels appropriate. Manager Sergio Conceição isn't enormously popular after a rough season, lagging behind Sporting Lisbon. You could have Mourinho working for Andre Villas-Boas. He's now running for the Porto presidency. Seems to have a reasonable chance of unseating Jorge Nuno Pinto da Costa, who's been in place since 1982. Turkey, Galatasaray or Fenerbahce, you get thrown into that rivalry. Major League Soccer. Here we go. Major League Soccer. Miller says there's only one job available. We'll get into that in a second. With the greatest respect to Minnesota as a team and a place, it's tough to imagine him rocking up there, but the prospect of somewhere more glamorous could appeal to his still significant ego. Miller finishes by saying Mourinho's on a downward trajectory. Gone is the charisma and magnetism of his early years. But people will always be dazzled by even the residual light of his star power. People will still think he could be the man to elevate them. And to reiterate the point, people will remember he's still a manager capable of success, both tangible and otherwise. If you think this is the end of Jose Mourinho, think again. And I don't think it's the end of Jose Mourinho by any stretch. I think legitimately it's probably Saudi Arabia. It probably is. So you could see the next stage of Jose Mourinho's career in short order. But you know that Jose Mourinho will pop up someplace. That is without question. We'll see Jose Mourinho pop up someplace. Don't know where, but Jose Mourinho sacked once again in a third year in his location, out the door. That's your opening kickoff, kind of in a backwards way. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code. Thank you, Abby. For those of you who are watching, either on our YouTube channel, on the Twitch pitch, and being a part of the Twitch pitch, or on the 280-character app. As you see, Abby's QR code is far better than the one that I've had in the rotation right there. So QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch. Don't forget, when you kick off your day with our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. They take 15%, reinvest it, because if they took 10% and you put in the code SoccerDownHere15, you get shortchanged 5%. SoccerDownHere15, you get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Okay. He probably would do a national team gig. He probably would. But yeah, Emilio, the special one to Minnesota United. They still have an opening. Alex says the Fairs Cup was Newcastle's last trophy, too. Emilio, if he's willing to take a pay cut, Minnesota United keeps you around keeps you around forever, and he fits the style. Alex, about Newcastle, no thanks. I know Jose has a special connection to Newcastle because of Bobby Robson, but give me Eddie for the near to mid-term. Would he ever do a national team gig? I think he would. And it would be, what nation, I guess this is probably something akin to a thought, the SDH poll of the morning. What country needs that boost to the next level? They're kind of hanging around, they're hanging around as a team to what you're thinking. And what national team could make that happen? I know that there was talk about, maybe Berhalter or something like that, but you look at the skill set of Jose Mourinho and you're going, You're kind of going, not so much. And you're thinking, I'm just like, I mean, Fourcard thinks that it might be the England national team after Southgate's term ends. I mean, if you are really looking for a team, I'm looking for a team that's on that second level, like the B+ player that could work their way up to that next level, or be a C-level team right now. You bring in Mourinho, you end up being a B. What team could be a C-level player to get to a B with Jose Mourinho? kind of like, and this is really going to date, and this is going to date me. Morning, Abby. Yeah, 3 Ps today. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Hope you stay safe and out of the freezing now occurring. Yep. So 3 Ps, reminder, take care of your people, your plants, and your pets. Do that today, next couple of days. 4 cards looking for drama. And you would get it still. You would get the bombast. You would get all of that with Jose going to whatever national team he went to. Will is saying Hungary. Too small a profile, but given it's their golden generation of their modern day. And that I'm sure that the government would be more than happy to subsidize what's going on with the national team. Give Jose Mourinho whatever he's looking for, whatever you're staring at, and euros. So think about that. What C-level team could bring in Jose Mourinho and turn into a B-level team? Like a Lenny Wilkins or a Dick Motta or a one of those coaches from the NBA, like a Jerry Glanville type. It's like you can get a team to a certain level, you just can't get them over the hump. You can get them to be a playoff team, but you can't get them to the next level. That's what I would be looking for Jose Mourinho's next step if he was to do something in the national team vein. So that would be where I'm staring at. So keep an eye on Jose Mourinho. He's probably going to be on the beach for the rest of the year, and then there'll be discussions, or late in the year, does he take a gig to try to stave a team from relegation or something like that, or are they just looking for the next season? Come in, finish the year, we'll do what we do. We'll make sure that things are going on in the summer, and then you'll be off and running. We'll sign you to a 2.5-year deal, blah blah blah, something like that. So that's what I would be looking for. Michael is giving Atlanta United till the end of the day tomorrow to announce Barta Slige. TikTok. We do know that Polish Power was on a plane because Slige's significant other took a picture of them hopping on a plane. He had said his goodbyes to his buddies at Legia Warsaw back on Friday. Was hopping on a plane because we saw the inside of the plane, and it was a glass of champagne. They were flying toward the front of the plane. Glass of champagne, and there were bubbles happening, so it was fairly freshly poured. And it looked like the shot was through or around the champagne glass, and it looked like Polish Power, Barta Slige, was like reading a book or something. We do know he was heading this way. But pitchers and catchers reported on Saturday for physicals. We had the first day of training camp for Atlanta United. Yesterday, it was at Mercedes-Benz. Probably will be there again today instead of up at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground because it's like cold outside. So, you're indoors, and I think it was Jay Fortune was the first one in the door. Practice was supposed to start at 8:30. Jay Fortune in the door at 7:17. Brad Gazan was second at 7:19. 4-card, you mentioned Moreno to Crystal Palace. I'm thinking it's going to be Steve Cooper. Steve Cooper has been well thought of by Crystal Palace circles in the front office for quite some time. And obviously, he's on the beach. He's going to be there on a free. Evangelinas Marinakis decided. So I'm thinking that it's going to be Steve Cooper to Crystal Palace once Roy Hodgson's future is decided. But Will on Twitter had the question of the day, and let me find it really quickly. It had to do with Atlanta United. And his question, assuming Cohen starts in goal this year, who will be the captain? Miles gone, the only name that makes sense to me is Lennon. Obviously, Gigi has a shot, but not fond of forwards being captains. First off, Will, I would say that it's going to be Brad. I mean, because I'm not, we are just getting into the early part of the season where it's still Brad's. I think it's still Brad's to lose. I still think that Brad's your number one keeper. And until that changes, it's probably going to be something like Brad, Lennon, and then maybe late in the game, Dax or something like that if Lennon leaves the pitch. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be some combination of Brad, Lennon, Gigi. I think you're spot on there. But I still think that you operate under the premise that Brad Gazan is going to be your captain and your number one starter. If Josh unseats him. If he unseats him, then obviously we get into the discussion about other individuals. But right now, as I'm looking at it, Brad is still my number one starter. But if you're looking at order and dudes, I would say Brad, Lennon, Gigi, somewhere in that combination of your 2 and your 3. Is it Brooks? Is it Gigi? And that's what you're starting. And then Dax probably late in the game if folks are substituted out and you need that veteran presence to go have a discussion with our buddy Dickerson, something like that. So I would say in order, all things being equal, because we don't know the depth chart yet, we don't know what the decisions are going to be made here on day 2 of training camp. I'm looking at it being Brad and then combination of Lennon and Gigi and then Dax coming in late. So that would be how I would be looking at it. But let me know what you guys think about what Will brought to the table this morning, because once again, here's how Will phrased it. Will said, assuming Cohen starts in goal, who will be the captain? With Miles gone, the only name that makes sense to me is Lennon. Obviously, Gigi has a shot, but not fond of forwards being captains. So that's what you're staring at. That's the early QOD this morning is on the captaincy for Atlanta United. But like I said, I'm operating still under the premise that Brad is still your number one keeper. If he's unseated, then things get a little different. So that's where I am with that particular topic in the QOD. Also, I forgot to mention. Remember how we've been talking about for the longest time that. For those of you who are watching on the video version, I put up the full screen of the Marshall Islands scarf. And for those of you who are on the 280-character app, then you've seen, and I would also suggest following all of the principles that are attached to the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation, because Justin Whaley is now over there, the director of communications. He's now over there. He's going to be over there for a week, and he's getting some coaching in. He got his massive travel from Middle Europe, and he went the long way. He went Middle Europe to London, then to LA, and then over, instead of working his way to the east. He came west and went like wester than west, came here to the States, then went to LA, Hawaii, and has started hopping over. But yeah, follow all the guys that are attached to the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation. But on the show right now, you see the scarf that we have been planning for our friends at the Marshall Islands. Still waiting on a price point, but they've arrived. Here they are in their glory. The Marshall Islands Soccer Federation assistants right here. All right, so here's how it looks like. Once again, Marshall Islands flag. This is the back. This is the back end, the raise the fleet section that Nick came up with. And maybe if I held it the correct way, I could let you know. But it's a summer scarf, obviously. Right here, raise the fleet. You've got the Marshall Islands flag on one side. Where is it? You see, now I'm losing my perspective here. Okay, there's the Marshall Islands flag, and then there's the SDH. And then on the flip side, it is the motto of the nation right there. Accomplishment through joint effort. Right there. Accomplishment through joint effort. The SDH, Marshall Islands, it's right there. When I get a price point, these will be unleashed on through the Soccer Federation and through us here, and we will let you know about domestic, and we'll post it to all of our platforms. But the scarves are officially in, so they now exist in Office HD. All the planning and plotting that we've come together to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands officially exists in the office. Like I said, when we get a price point, I'll let you know. But it's been a good couple of months in getting that designed and getting that all the way from Turkey to here, believe it or not. So we'll see. We'll see. But once again, the scarves are in. You can go with your jersey and your bucket hat. You can get your full outfit for our friends at the Marshall Islands, helping them out because, like I said, they want to come here in late 2024 and they want to try to do some recruiting. They want to try to have some friendlies, and they're looking to do it up there in the Four Corners where Marshallese are prevalent in the population in Oklahoma, Arkansas, in the corner with Kansas and Missouri, right up in there. So they're looking to be here in 2024, and we will see what that turns out to be. They're looking at October as a date. But once again, scarf is in. When we know, we'll obviously post it and we'll let everybody purchase and help out our friends at the Marshall Islands. And you can have the summer scarf because, if you had a full scarf in the Marshall Islands with their weather, it might be a little hot. So, yeah, we went with the summer scarf, the lighter material, and thanks to them for letting us do it. Emilio thinks that Pineda is going to be afraid to be the one to unseat Brad. I think Brad would unseat Brad, frankly. If Brad gets to the point where he knows, he'll say something. And Will obviously said he loves Goose butt. And so we'll see. But no, right now I've got it as Brad until he's unseated, and then Lennon and Gigi in some combination in there. But no, I think that legitimately, I think that Brad will be the first person to tell you. I know, and it's one of the toughest things, Emilio. Emilio says Guzan will never feel when it's time to give up. Athletes are often like that. But I think you can also, like I said, if I end up wrong, I'm wrong. But I think that with everything that Brad has gone through, especially coming back from the Achilles injury, he always has these discussions with his family when the season's over to discuss his future. And if the family makes a decision that it's time, it's time. So we'll see. But like I said, right now, I think that Brad would know. But I think Brad will let us know one way or the other. But like I said, we'll figure it out one way or the other. All right. So we were talking yesterday. Let's talk about Major League Soccer and the continuing saga in Minnesota United. All right. Andy Greeter's been busy. And he is a follow for folks that want to follow things going on, Minnesota United, the Golden Gophers, at Andy Greeter, Greder, the Pioneer Press. He had a busy day yesterday. And Minnesota United, first and foremost, for those of you that might remember New England Revolution 2 and the Revs, going up against Atlanta United 2 and Atlanta United last year, Minnesota United signed Jordan Adebayo-Smith to a 3-year deal. That's a decent pickup. Club option for 27. They traded $125,000 in AM, specifically GAM, to New England for the rights. The Revs could receive up to $50,000 more in GAM if he meets performance metrics. So Jordan Adebayo-Smith, rights were traded, signed him to a 3-year deal through 27. So that was the first piece of news for Andy Greeter yesterday. Then it was disclosed that Emmanuel Reynoso has not yet reported to preseason camp. Sources told the Pioneer Press, a.k.a. Andy Greeter. Meanwhile, they have received transfer interest in Emmanuel Reynoso. This is the second year in a row where there has been an issue with Emmanuel Reynoso. Reynoso has not reported to preseason camp. Went through a month-long absence of Reynoso last year. Rostered players were expected to arrive at the National Sports Center on Saturday. Training sessions beginning inside the Dome practice field early this week, once again. Strikers and keepers report. Reynoso has not. Details of Reynoso's current situation are not yet known, according to Reader. Tell me if you've heard this before. The club said last week it'll open its first practice to reporters today And interim head coach Cameron Knowles is set to speak to media members after that session. Last season, Reynoso did not report on time to preseason training in January, started into what Greeter refers to as a protracted absence, during which MLS suspended him without pay from mid-February into May. March, April, mid-February, 10. So you're looking at basically a 12-week suspension or a 12-week protracted absence, basically. Returned to Minnesota United early May, citing family issues for his prolonged absence. After reinstatement meetings, his suspension was lifted, returned to the field against Toronto on June the 3rd. Basically 14, 15 weeks. 5, 6, and 4 before he showed up. 5, 7, and 7 after he showed up. So not a whole lot there. 6 goals, 4 assists in 18 matches. Toward the end of last season, Reynoso told reporters the family dynamic that had kept him away was in his past. Regardless of the status of the star player, Minnesota United, and this is Greeter, Minnesota United has enough on its plate going into the 24 season. New chief soccer officer Khaled El Ahmad was hired in early November. Greeter once again. Khaled El Ahmad was hired in early November, but is still in the process of obtaining his work visa before he can start in-person duties in his new job. Your new chief soccer officer was hired in November, and he's not on this side of the Atlantic yet. Still in the process of obtaining his work visa. As of last week, the plan was for him to arrive in Minnesota from England this week. El Ahmad was hired to oversee the sporting department, take up some of the duties Adrian Heath had till he was fired. Remember, just to recap, Sean McCauley named interim coach to replace Heath for the final 2 matches of 23. Why at that point, if you didn't think that you were going to renew Adrian Heath, you just didn't keep him, is beyond me. In December, the club said McCauley would remain in his interim role to start the 2024 season. Basically, Khaled El Ahmad and Minnesota United as an ownership group basically said, yeah, we're good. We're good. In January, meaning this month, like a couple of weeks ago, McCauley leaves Minnesota United. Knowles was named interim coach. McCauley was then named the permanent head coach at Indy 11 and USL Championship. Transfer interest from Reynoso from an undisclosed Brazilian club linked with Vasco da Gama this winter, but that is not the club that Minnesota United has heard from. Loons place a higher value on Reynoso and would need to see a fee that reaches that level in order to contemplate a move. 3-year contract through 25. List as guaranteed compensation last season at 2.1, making him the second highest paid player on the club behind striker Timu Pukki. So Minnesota United, chief soccer officer, still working remotely, and there apparently have been some interest in transactions with other players this morning, or links. Still in England, hired in November, has had problems getting the work visa or what have you, problems bogged down because of technology or personnel or just the process. Been working remotely since he was hired in November. Still working remotely. Hoping to be here on this side of the Atlantic this week after pitchers and catchers have reported. You've got problems once again with your very talented striker. And you still have a substitute of a substitute teacher as your head coach. I would love to know what the predictions are for Minnesota United this season in Major League Soccer. This is about as messy of a mess as it gets. I mean, this, if you could draw a picture of Minnesota United, it would be the stereotypic picture of the young child sitting in the high chair fiddling with breakfast. That, to me, is what Minnesota United looks like right now. You got the kid in the high chair who's sitting there fiddling with his breakfast, smashing his hand in all of his food, and the food's all over his face. That's what Minnesota United looks like to me right now. That's what Minnesota United looks like. You're like the kid smashing his food in the high chair, and the food's going all over the place instead of the place where it's supposed to go. Oh, yeah, Abby says that she'd love to know who's at fault. Read the visa. I mean, is it just bureaucracy grinding things to a halt in the state of Minnesota? Why is it that KEA is not on this side of the Atlantic after he was hired back in November? I mean, you're looking at 6 weeks just to get you back to November. You know, was this a 6 to 8 week process to get your visa once you got hired? But yeah, this Minnesota United to me right now is the kid playing with its food. Right now, for me, if you wanted to get me to do predictions and things like that, in as much as I, enjoy, all of my children equally here when we come to discuss things, Minnesota United to me, all right, so I've got them last. I have no other recourse here because of all of this stuff that's going on. I mean, I don't know where else to put them. I mean, if you look at last year, in the West, Minnesota was, 41 points. They finished 11th, and they were 3 points out of the play-in. Austin, they got a lot of pressure on them to improve. I think they will. LAG, hey, Carlos Vela could be heading to LAG. LAG is going to drop some money on somebody. We know this. There are rumors. Paintsel is being rumored to Los Angeles Galaxy, and it would be another 8-figure transfer to the left of the decimal point. Carlos Vela, that one still is gaining traction. Frankly, with Carlos Vela gaining traction to go cross town, makes you wonder if the agent is in play a little bit. From what we were discussing with Carlos Vela yesterday, NYCFC put a number on the table, wasn't close. LAG apparently has put a number on the table that's close to what Vela wants. And it would be better than going back on loan to Real Sociedad, as much as Carlos Vela wants to go back and play in Europe. But it looks like you got Gabriel Peck in the discussions. You've got Carlos Vela. You've got Paintsel. LAG is going to spend some money. We know that. Colorado looks like they're picking up Sam Vines. They dropped $3 million to bring in Georgi Mihailovic. All that Chris Armas has been doing in the offseason, bringing folks in and stunning us all. Zach Steffen coming in to be a part of what's going on in Colorado. Looking at those folks that did not make the playoffs, Portland worries me a little bit, but I don't think that they're going to be truly awful. Minnesota, to me, right now, sticks out as the team that could finish last in the West. You don't have a chief soccer officer. You're on your second substitute teacher of the winter, and you've started pitchers and catchers. You've started camp. You don't have your talisman for the second year in a row, although it's a different point in the calendar. It's a little earlier this year. And Teemu Pukki admitted that, yeah, things are not good. At preseason media day, league media day, he was asked about it. So Teemu Pukki's learning his teammates as well, going forward. But yeah, there's a lot going on at Minnesota United, and we all need to keep an eye on it because it ain't looking good. It ain't looking good. Transactions. The biggest transaction that's official yesterday in Major League Soccer, Cade Cowell to Chivas. That officially went down. Goes to a Big Four club. Departs for a reported $4 million fee plus add-ons and a piece of the pass. Decent piece of business for San Jose. Club record deal. Chris Leach, the GM, had a couple of sentences of praise in a press release. Joined in 2019, went through the academy, fourth youngest signing in MLS history at 15 years, 102 days. 10 goals, 15 assists on 104 matches. 1 goal and 8 USMNT caps, starred during the U20 World Cup, 3 goals as the U.S. reached the quarters. Ahead of the 22 season, Cowell signed a contract extension that elevated him to a U22 slot. Named a commissioner's pick in the All-Star game. Cade Cowell had a couple of sentences of praise in the press release. Chivas, reminder, they traditionally only sign Mexican players, a policy that's relaxed in recent years to allow dual nationals. Remember the photo that we had on social media that we talked about where Cade Cowell was flashing a passport to Mexico, from Mexico. Mexican government was there, the ambassador was there, all that. You kind of thought that might have been the first stage. So Cowell holds a Mexican passport. And so now San Jose has to chase after more attackers to go with Abobasi and Espinosa. And they've got a DP slot open. So San Jose and Cade Cowell, good piece of business for them. But we'll see what goes there. We mentioned Jordan Adebayo-Smith. Chicago Fire signed their super draft pick, Brian Dowd. Minnesota United also signed defender Derek Dodson. We know Derek Dodson, Del Schaefer does, from his time in Charleston with the Battery. So you get an experienced defender, and he's probably not going to hit hard on the cap. The Fire, once again, going the loan route, going overseas, picking up Alan Aragoni on loan from Lugano for the 24 season with a purchase option. 25-year-old former Swiss Youth International. He spent his entire career in Switzerland. 6 goals, 16 assists, 145 games for Lugano and Grasshoppers. Georg Heitz said it was that adding a right back was a priority. Also spending a boatload of AM was a priority. So Aragoni joins Suquet and Johnny Dean as right backs. Johnny Dean, underrated pickup. We got to see him in Birmingham with the Legion and USL Championship. Next time Kaylor Hodges is on and our friends from the USL show are on, I'll ask about Johnny Dean. Third new defender signed the winner after left back Andrew Gutman and center back Tobias Sahlquist. Remember the Gutman deal is where they threw like $9 gazillion in GAM at Colorado to make that happen. And once again, no real surprise, Chicago and Lugano both owned by Joe Mansueto. Marin Haile Selassie, Chicago's leading scorer last year, is an example of turning loan into a deal. Jean Espinosa, Ignacio Aliceta have gone from Chicago to Lugano. So you've got that kind of movement. So anything Lugano and Chicago Fire, that's all in the same family. Houston Dynamo signed homegrown defender Kieran Sargent. First team deal through 25, options through 26 and 7. Just completed his junior year at Georgetown. Starting all 19 games as the Hoyas reached the second round of the 23 NCAA championship. So that's your up-to-dateness on all of the transfers that we have so far with everything up to date. Interesting, John Herdman likes to talk. And John Herdman had a press conference, and I'm guessing, that once again you're talking about pitchers and catchers. You have your first press conference, those kinds of things. So he had his I think his first training camp press conference. And yesterday, John Herdman said in his press conference, he alluded to the fact, this is from James Sharman on Twitter, that the Michael Bradley, Bob Bradley son-father dynamic was not ideal within the room and always would be a recipe for disaster, according to the players who have spoken to him about it. First off, why are you airing that out? Why? Why are you saying these kinds of things? Why are you talking about the previous administration by name? Why are you doing that? You just like throwing names out there? I'm in charge, so I'm going to say whatever I want. So Herdman yesterday says, Herdman is talking about the father-son dynamic of Michael and Bob Bradley. He's talking about the past coach. Why do you want to do that? Reminder, Bradley was injured from early April until late August. Bob was fired in June. So there was barely any kind of on-the-field interaction with game day practices and Bob Bradley and Michael Bradley. I mean, maybe he was there standing around, maybe learning how to, to be a coach in his next life. But John Herdman felt compelled yesterday in his press conference to call out the previous administration. According to the players who've spoken to him about it, it was always going to be a recipe for disaster. I always thought that when you had stuff like this, you kind of, keep it quiet. That's locker room stuff. Stuff that goes on in the locker room traditionally should stay in the locker room. What's in the coach's office stays in the coach's office. And thinking this forward, if John Herdman is going to be discussing things like this openly, if I was a current player, would I be somewhat concerned if I, was not, for whatever reason, in John Herdman's good graces? Am I going to get called out by my boss? Either, he's going to intimate that it was something with me. I mean, literally, this is loose lips. How would I feel if I'm new to this room, or if I didn't have a problem with the Michael Bradley, Bob Bradley father-son dynamic that was not ideal and would always be a recipe for disaster? If I was cool with it and was still a part of that roster, and I hear my new head coach talking publicly about these kinds of things, taking the dirty laundry from last season and airing it out for the media this season when he wasn't a part of it, what does that say? Legitimately, what does that say? James also had one other tidbit. He says, paraphrasing, Insigne and Bernardeschi are part of the leadership group. Both have demonstrated commitment to him, but in football, if a big deal from a big club arrives, you understand. Basically, they're here now, but if the price tag is right, we'll ship them. I mean, I thought they wanted to go home. I thought they already wanted to leave. As we get closer to the season, I'll see if I can bring James on, because James and I go way back to days of Canadian television. And James also has a pie business, Charman's Proper. He's got a pie business up in Canada. So I'll see if I can bring James on. We'll talk the Score Television Network, and we'll talk about TFC. But this is kind of waving a bit of a red flag for me. And I know you're waking the red and all that kind of stuff. It was an unintentional pun. But when you have folks, when you have coaches airing out grievances from the past administration, I get kind of the idea that you're trying to back your guys that are there that have survived the previous administration. I get it, I think. But why are you saying this publicly? Are you trying that hard to keep them? Yeah, I'm your boy. So I'll air out things from the last administration. We'll air that stuff out. Sure, why not? Why don't we do that? Keep an eye on that. Goodness gracious almighty. So John Herdman off to a running start in he's off to a running start in Major League Soccer. So we will see what is up with the latest with that as that continues to grow. Yikes. Question of the day, once again, brought up by Will this morning. So who do you think is going to be captain once Goose's time as captain and being on the field? I know, like I said, this is down the road. But when you look at succession plans for captains, what are you looking at? Like I said, I still think that that Brad is number one. Then I'm looking at Lennon and Gigi. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And thanks for hanging out with us once again on Tuesday. Once again, weather is supposed to be just ungodly cold. Programming note, there won't be a morning show tomorrow. I have to go out of town this afternoon. So it'll be an SDH PM. I'll keep you posted on a time. Probably late afternoon, close to dinner, might be a power hour. So we'll see what happens there. But just a reminder, no morning show tomorrow. I'll be on the road and coming back in the afternoon. So it'll be an SDH PM. And we'll see what has happened on Wednesday, and we'll walk through it and let everybody talk about what happened on the day. Abby, she doesn't think it should be Gigi. Let's see who's actually rostered. Right on. So we'll see what happens there with folks. All right. Because yesterday we talked about Reading, and I want to. There have been developments, and they're not great, but we gotta keep kind of talking about this because it's important. By the way, Serena Wiegmann has extended her contract through 27. So Serena Wiegmann staying through 27. All right. Yesterday we talked about things internationally, and Reading has been a topic of conversation. Sadly, it has been a topic of conversation that we have to bring forward because when owners are idiots, we got to call them out. So yesterday we talked about how the EFL is mad. And yeah, we'll get into the Richard Masters stuff with the Premier League and him sitting in front of members of Parliament, and Tom can vent his spleen with the Masters meeting. Apparently, the chief executive at Reading, a gentleman by the name of Dayong Pang, he has now hit out at the fans' protest after the pitch invaders got the match abandoned. Remember, on the weekend, it was a match against Port Vale, and fans started throwing tennis balls like in the 3rd minute. Then in the 16th minute, about 1,000 of them went onto the pitch, basically had a sit-in, and some of them left, most of them left, and then came back. The Port Vale fans who had traveled applauded the Reading fans because we've talked about how screwed this situation is and how screwed up it is and how Dayong has no business being an owner under any circumstance whatsoever. All these different times that he has been told to pay up, it's always been like this last minute thing. You're supposed to put in 120, and it's gotten to the point to where you're supposed to put in 125% of the money's owed. And he's, reluctant to even do that. And the EFL, which is coming across just as toothless as all the other organizations that we seem to be talking about these days when it comes to power and who's in charge, and we're mad at you, so you better pay up. The EFL is coming across as just as powerful as, say, the NCAA. So Saturday we had the sit-in, we had the protests. Reading, once again, financial turmoil, docked 16 points the last 2 years, 2 deductions this season alone. There have been reports, and this is from our friends at TalkSport, there have been reports of players living on microwave meals. Dayong Pang, the chief executive, has now had his say. He went on TalkSport, confirmed they're in talks to sell Reading. Tell me if you've heard that before. Quote, I share the frustration about the selling process, but the reaction has done nothing good for the club. It has done nothing good for the selling process. The selling process is undergoing. I please ask our fans be more patient. It takes time. Please be patient. Asked by Jim White whether the Royals have any potential buyers, Pang remarked, we keep talking to all different kinds of buyers after 2 offers pulled out. We're still talking to all different kinds of people, and Mr. Dye is 100% willing to sell the club. Press as to whether he realized how important the football club is to the supporters. And like I said, Jessica Charman is one of those. She grew up on this club. When we can grab the comet known as Jessica Charman by the tail, we'll have her on to talk about it again. We understand. He's trying to put the club in safe hands. We cannot just lie to sell the club to people. Expressing if he has any fear for further protests, he declared, there's nothing I can do more. We are doing our job, and some fans think they're doing the right thing. All I can say is just ask our fans, just please be more patient. The selling process is undergoing. EFL Chair Rick Perry has vowed they're fully behind Reading fans as he commented on the situation at the Department of Culture, Media, and Sport. Like I said, this is the Richard Masters discussion about Manchester City, Everton, etc., that Tom has been all mad about this morning. Understandably so. We share the fans' concerns. We absolutely do. We are trying to take action against Dayong. Reading has fallen foul of our profit and sustainability rules and have suffered the punishments. My question to Rick Perry is, this is still going on. When does the EFL realize that this is a systemic issue with this particular club? This isn't just something that's, oh, oops. 4 point deductions in the last handful of seasons, 2 this year. Because the guy isn't paying bills. So what does the EFL do? They fine him. You're not paying your bills, so we're going to fine you. I'd love to know if he's paid these fines. I doubt it. £50,000 fine. We're fining you. Still pull the same stunt. Hey, we're fining you again. $80,000. If he doesn't want to invest in the club in the first place and has zero desire to invest just to keep it on life support, just doing the basics, what makes the EFL think legitimately that a guy like Dayong is going to give 2 flying farts about an £80,000 fine when they can't really track him down? Guy is an owner in absentia. He's not even in the country. He's not going to games. He's owning remotely. Dayong Pang, the guy that we talked about as the chief executive, he's the one who's sitting in the stands. Dayong, if the guy does even exist as a human being, he's not in the country. Doesn't care. EFL, we're fining you. You made us mad. You're not doing it right. We're fining you again. We're fining you even more. Oh, really? Watch me pay that fine. Reading, this is classic. Reading has fallen foul of our profit and sustainability rules and have suffered the punishments. The fans have suffered the punishments. The city has suffered the punishments. The supporters worldwide have suffered the punishments. Everyone in the day staff, the folks that were tied to the club, the caterers who got dismissed because they weren't getting paid. Think about all of the individuals that it takes to put a game day on. Think about all of those folks. And they're either having to live off a separate wage, foregoing their checks like the head coach did. And by the way, an assistant coach got let go because they didn't want to pay him. Reading has fallen foul of our profit and sustainability rules and have suffered the punishments. Everyone has suffered the punishments except the damn owner. David, I would suggest the fan protest hurt sale value possibly as a distressed asset. But why should the fans want to help him recoup value if he sells? Let new owners get a deal so they have more to spend to fix the club. Perry continued in Parliament. Just before Christmas, we took action against the owner, not against the club. And I'm taking his statement and I'm parsing it. I admit that I'm taking it a sentence at a time. Took action against the owner, not against the club. When a guy doesn't want to invest and isn't investing, you really can't take it against the club. Just before Christmas, we took action against the owner, not against the club, in an attempt to get him disqualified. The disciplinary panel on that occasion found that it was not warranted. That's another mistake. The disciplinary panel decided that it wasn't warranted. Fined him instead. Perry, frankly, finding Dai Young is of no use at all, who won't put money into the club. He's not going to pay the fines. Meeting fan groups this afternoon, apparently Sell Before We Die, the one that has ties to Jess. As part of that. We want a new owner. We want a resolution of the problem just as much as Reading supporters. Don't ever believe that the EFL doesn't care. We do care. We don't want to be losing clubs, but we're not in a position where we can easily force him to divest the club. We have the power to potentially disqualify the owner, but what we don't have is the power to force a sale. Why not? Why not? Take receivership of the club. Take responsibility for the club. The EFL, to me, right now in this situation, first off, the disciplinary panel that just wanted to fine him instead of disqualify him, that's another fatal mistake. You look at all the past evidence, you sit there and you go, all of this stuff has happened. Now we'll fine him. Seriously. Really. You don't have the power to force a sale. You know what, you don't. You absolutely do. You absolutely do. But for some strange reason, you don't want to pull the trigger. Well, you don't want to get him mad. I mean, that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And they're stuck, meaning the fans are stuck in this situation. Rich, no single entity can't force a sale or force administration where the leagues take over. Well, then maybe that needs to change. Michael Valverde, the EPL has very selective application of its so-called rules, never seems to apply to Pep's teams. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting into that. We are getting into that. Yeah, we'll get into the we'll get into that situation, and we will definitely what can I say? What can I say, Rich? Modiflow, good morning. No, I've gone on a bit of a Reading riff this morning. I'm mad at the EFL and Rick Perry for not taking receivership ownership. Not about my beloved European teams. They can't be like Major League Soccer. Sorry, I'm trying to take care of a little business here. But yeah, so Rick Perry was a part of that process this morning, and it was let's sit down and we'll talk. And I know that Tom, if you're fired up, then go on ahead and chime in, because Richard Masters this morning, as a part of that discussion that we were talking about, Richard Masters admitted pretty much that things are being handled differently with what he is going through right now. Dan Roan at the BBC. There is a date set for football's trial of the century, according to Roan. The trial date has been set. Richard Masters told the House of Commons hearing has been scheduled over the 115 alleged breaches of the league's financial rules. The case is progressing, but he would not reveal when. It's like, yeah, we've got a date, but yeah, we got a date. We just ain't telling you yet. And there's a great shot of the House of Commons camera, and there is an Everton fan sitting behind Richard Masters in this testimony. It's just like, okay, good work. Damian Green, member of Parliament, asks Masters if he understands the cynicism of Everton and Forest fans over the way that their clubs have been treated. Premier League CEO Richard Masters says most fans want to know the regulatory bodies will enforce very important rules. The grilling continued. Rupa Hook, member of Parliament, asks Masters about what she calls far from transparent criteria, which saw Everton docked 10 points. Masters said the rules are clear and defends the sanctions being at the discretion of the independent commission. Damian Green asked Masters and Perry if hard thinking is needed over points deductions. Green says if you get to a situation where 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 clubs start getting points deductions in the middle of a season, the league is pretty meaningless. The league is pretty meaningless. So much like the NCAA, you're seeing this right now with what's going on with Everton and Nottingham Forest. Modiflow, does that mean Chelsea and City are going to get relegated, only not to get relegated because money? Michael Valverde. Everton just needs to hire MCU lawyers too, save a few point deductions. Well, actually, I don't know if they can afford it. We'll get into that in just a second. And yes, Rich, I am getting into that. Rich once again being one of our intrepid trackers on the 280 character app. We do have a new owner in the USL Championship. Owner of one of the best bat throws ever in the history of mankind in a playoff game in Major League Baseball. Jose Bautista. We'll get back to Everton in just a second because it's an investigative piece. And we'll get into it. Jose Bautista. If you had Jose Bautista and USL Championship, and specifically Vegas Lights on your bingo card, you win. You win. You absolutely win. They were looking for a developer, an area developer, to take over ownership of Vegas Lights. Once again, this will be another topic for Kaylor Hodges. next time the USL show guys are on. But the ownership by the major regional developer fell through. So Jose Bautista is now the new owner of the Vegas Lights. Did not have that on the bingo card. So here's a new principal owner. And here's how it's phrased by Vegas. Here's how it's phrased by them on their website. Immediately elevating its profile within the exploding pro sports landscape in Las Vegas. As primary investor, he will assume the role of chairman and governor of the club ahead of the USL Championship season kickoff in March. Elevating its profile with the exploding pro sports landscape in Las Vegas. So, all right, so let's think about this. The A's, maybe, but they gotta build a stadium, and they might be playing in Sacramento in 2025. Bill Foley, okay, Vegas Lights, Mark Davis, and now Jose Bautista. So, Mark Davis, Bill Foley, Jose Bautista, the exploding pro sports landscape. Okay, so here's the quotes from Jose Bautista. I'm gonna actually read these. Las Vegas is the place to be and has emerged as a big professional sports town, and I will do everything I can to push this club forward. I'm excited to be involved with the world's game since my retirement from professional baseball. I've witnessed the incredible growth of soccer in the U.S. Look forward to sharing my love of sports with the Vegas soccer community. Active and thoughtful investor, according to Vegas Lights. Board member, philanthropist, and entrepreneur. And it mentions all the different partnerships he had. Early equity partner, lead investor, and board member for something called Marucci Sports. Startup sold to Compass Diversified in 2020. Additional business interests include stakes in Canada Goose and Indie Sleep, which was acquired by Sleep Country in 2018. Partner and senior advisor to Aqualance, a leading household financial management firm. Goes through his career in baseball, born and raised in the Dominican Republic. Justin Papadakis with a paragraph of positive thoughts. Paul McDonough, a couple of sentences of positive thoughts. So Jose Bautista is your new owner in Las Vegas. Will says one of the coolest non-Cub baseball moments in his life is the homer versus Baltimore in the playoffs. For me, if you have time, I mean, literally, this is like 45 minutes. If you have the time to do it, go back and watch that 7th inning with Toronto and Texas in the division series with the bat flip and Encarnacion and all the mistakes and all that stuff. Fantastic. So it's great television. Emilio with the update, and it's right in the wheelhouse of what we've been talking about. According to Ekrem Konur, who is referring to himself out of TNT Sports in Argentina. Thank you, Emilio. TNT Sports Argentina referring to himself on his 280-character app account as a world transfer expert, a global transfer expert, sorry. A global transfer expert. ATLUTD are planning to make an opening bid of €23 million for Atlanta's Thiago Almada. Okay, that's what we'd figured. We'd figured it would be, according to AS yesterday, 22 to 25. This to me means that it's a percentage of the pass. Harry, good morning. So if you're thinking 30, it's everything. If it's less than that, it's a percentage of the pass attached. And Atlanta United will continue to bank on Thiago Almada going forward. So the further away you get from, say, 30, And like I said, we had talked about, did not see him in the video yesterday. Did not see him in the processional yesterday. Of course, now that you've got me, I'm going to go back and look at it. But I don't remember seeing it immediately. But now I'm going to go back and look at it. But we had seen that 30 was the number, but the further away you get from 30, you've got to think that a percentage of the pass is attached. So Ropes is saying that he was not in the released video yesterday. All of the drip that wandered into the building yesterday. It's like, so who's wandering in? Did not see Thiago wandering in yesterday. Saba, by the way, got rid of that's true. Modifloy's with the Argentina U23s. That's absolutely true. Good catch. So, national call-up. Yeah, so he's kind of busy at the moment. So, anything away from 30, you're thinking percentage of the pass. 22 to 25 is what we were staring at initially. So I'm thinking that as we go forward, if that 22 to 25 is about where we're thinking right now, then you're looking at probably 15 to 20% of the pass. I would say 20% max of Thiago Almada and Atletico Madrid. It will give us another team to follow across the pond. So with all of that going on, Thiago, further away from 30, percentage of the pass. And there was the discussion that, that you were doing it as a favor to Atletico Madrid. Thiago's said in interviews he wants to go there. Okay, cool, great, fine. No worries. But once again, remember, when it comes to Thiago, you have to keep an eye on Angel Correa. If Correa moves to Saudi Arabia, that opens up the spot. And Correa's agent and Almada's agent or representation is the same individual. So you see where this works. If Correa gets his wish and goes to Saudi Arabia, that opens the slot for Thiago Almada. There was talk yesterday of other individuals being brought in and that the deal wouldn't happen with Almada. But if Conor is saying, if Ekrem Conor in Argentina is saying that it's still 22 to 25, not really a surprise. Well, but Michael, I mean, I know that Michael's asking, when does a team do us a favor? You never know. It's almost like do you remember the show Stingray? And this is truly an 80s reference. Nick Mancuso was a guy who had a beautiful Stingray automobile, and he would go through, he didn't really remember his past or anything like that. It was a Stephen Cannell show. And he would wander through America and he would help folks. But the key was he had the car. And what he would do to help out folks in situations is he would pull favors back from the times in the past. Like if he needed to come across as a doctor, or he needed to learn how to do things as a doctor. There was a doctor that he helped out in the past, and he would call that favor in. So that's how I'm looking at it. He would always sit there and say, well, what do I owe you? The folks that would be asking for help from Nick Mancuso, he would go, no, you don't owe me anything. But one day I will ask you for a favor and you will grant it. That's how I'm kind of looking at this. So this to me is like Stingray, and it's all on YouTube, by the way. That's how I'm looking at this. Someday I'll ask you for a favor and you will grant it. You never know. Modiflow. An IOU is a powerful thing to hold on to. But, I mean, and think about it this way. How many times in the history of Major League Soccer has a team in Major League Soccer sent someone to La Liga? I mean, Carlos Vela played at Real Sociedad. But how many times has a team in Major League Soccer sent a player to La Liga to play? How many times has it sent a player to Atletico Madrid to play? How many times has Atlanta United been able to do that with a player? So that's where we are here. If you can, but and the thing is, it's doing it a favor. I mean, think of it this way. Rich, it might be. Rich is thinking it might be somebody from LAFC that was heading over that way that wasn't Vela. But to be able to, if you are in Major League Soccer, to send a player to La Liga, that's big. And the fact that Atlanta United could do that, and like I said, looking at it as doing it a favor, I mean, literally what you're doing is you are literally asking for a piece of the past. You're not even legitimately, it is just you want a piece of the action. If Atleti is somewhat cash strapped at the moment, if they're cash strapped for whatever reason, then you're looking at it, it's like, fine, just a piece of the action. That's great. I'm cool with that. And you get to hang on to that for as long as Thiago Almada would be a part of a playing career. Okay, so now I have the list of departures, and I'm trying to see if any of them are across to. All right, so Rossi to Fenerbahce, we talked about that one. Christian Tello to Al Fateh. Colorado, Houston, Miami, a lot of Vegas. Jamal Blackman to Huddersfield. Rossi once again. A lot of movement to Vegas. A lot of folks without club. Zelaya to Celaya. That'll never happen again. Eddie Segura, Atletico Huila. Bold, Lansing, Mitre. Laurent Simon to Dijon. Internacional, Lanús. So that's so I was looking at LAFC just briefly. So Aruju from Galaxy to, let's see, Aruju from Galaxy. So inbound, I need an inbound look at LAFC. So LA Galaxy is what I need. Nothing. Like I said, we're workshopping this like instantly as it's happening, as it's coming across. But I mean, look at it this way, and to the point that that Ropes and Amelia are making. Amelia says, I think Nick was right last week. I'm thinking less confidently about the idea MLS can just transfer players for 30 or 40 million. Don't remember what will owe Almada's previous team, but I think teams are getting greedy. And, once again, you look at the international marketplace and you see what it is. If someone can get you, like I said, if you can take a little less and still get a piece of the action going forward, that could be absolutely vital. Araujo to Barca. Araujo to Barca by LA Galaxy for $4 million. That was the one I think that we're all trying to chase. So, going back another year, Alolense, Galaxy, Q2. But no, I think it's the Julian Araujo to Barca. I think that's the one that we were trying to figure out. But, and Modaflow doing the public service, looking at AFCON this morning with Burkina Faso. Mali is another one that's got great shirts. I would go absolutely poor with this stuff. Araujo didn't play, sent to Las Palmas on loan. But yeah, when you have the chance to sit there and put your name once again in the international marketplace, hey, look, we are bringing in talent, and talent wants to go in La Liga. That we're able to do that. That's a big thing in the world marketplace for a young club. And so even if it's a little less than 30 or 35, 30, say, and you get a piece of the action going forward, that's a good piece of business that will continue to help and help and help as long as Thiago Almada has what? At 22, 23. So you're probably thinking 2 or 3 more contracts in his career if you're Thiago Almada. And you get a piece of the action of each of those contracts of those transfers. And so 30, and then you do they do a couple of domestic transfers with another couple of contracts, and you're still getting $5 to $10 million for each one of those hits going forward. You're still doing a good piece of business. So, I mean, that's where we are with Thiago Almada, with Ekrem Konur, who on the 280 character app, by the way, had his last name in all caps. Thanks to Maddie, who is producing this morning, found the goal.com piece about Richard Masters. There is a date, but I can't tell you what it is. They've got a court date, just can't tell you when. That's got to be just the most satisfying thing ever. Yes, all caps do mean all business. But yeah, Richard Masters. Stop short of revealing, this is from goal.com, stop short of revealing when City's date with Destiny will come. There's a date, but I can't tell you. What the hell does that mean? There's a date, but I can't tell you when it is. Can't tell you. Good Lord. I can't tell you when it is. I think the phrase to continue to attach to that would be "child please." Can't tell you when. 80 alleged breaches of financial rules, another 30 with the failure to cooperate. The volume and character of the charges laid before Manchester City, which I obviously cannot talk about at all, are being heard in a completely different environment. There's a date set for that proceeding. I cannot unfortunately tell you when it is, but that date is progressing. Uh-huh. The 4-letter paper reported back in November it would take place in the late autumn of this year. Mentioned the Everton penalties. All right, so since we're to that point, all right. No, the past. I mean, no, it doesn't stop. I mean, think of it this way. I mean, you put in the language, each subsequent transaction, down and down and down and down and down. I mean, Peterborough United is frothing at the mouth right now. Because if Ivan Toney, to give you an example, if Ivan Toney gets sold by Brentford, Peterborough gets 10%. Excuse me. And because of all the talk about Ivan Toney and the £100 million transfer, hang on just a second. The £100 million transfer of Ivan Toney from Brentford. I did not know that. That's wild, wacky stuff. Yep, exactly. Brentford sells Ivan Toney for $100 million. Peterborough United gets 10% of that action. The chairman of Peterborough United was on TalkSport, and he says, man, and he was joking when he said it. He says, man, they are tired, meaning Brentford. Brentford is tired of hearing me call him on the phone to get updates. And he's kind of joking about it. But yeah, Brentford sold, Peterborough United sold Ivan Toney to Brentford. Got 10% of the pass. You get that sale next time through, then Peterborough gets pretty rich. Peterborough United still gets 10% of the action. So he sold for $100 million. $10 million goes to Peterborough United. So there you go. All right. Yeah. Too bad Newcastle didn't keep a piece of the action on Toney. All right. Our friends at Yosemar Football, since we're here and we're discussing what's going on with folks, our friends at Yosemar Football did another really good investigation. And this is the point of the program where Ropes and Tom Russo cover their ears or yell or scream. Because it's about 777 partners. And we've talked about 777 partners a lot because they're the ones that are tied to possibly picking up Everton. Now, Paul Brown and Philippe Auclair, and we have, for the record, reached out to Paul Brown to see if we can get him to do a 1v1. Well, later today, by the way, we got a 1v1 with our friends at Apatios, and that'll be on the network later today. Paul Brown and Philippe Auclair. What do we always say when there's more than one reporter? You know it's some serious ish. Article is titled Endgame, and they do some fantastic investigative work. Endgame from Yosemar Football. 777 partners have been hit with multiple new lawsuits. Their two main sources of funding are now under investigation by corporate watchdogs. And their companies have been borrowing millions at an interest rate of 52.5%. 777 partners. Companies have been borrowing millions at an interest rate of 52.5%. That's not good. That means that the lenders don't quite think that you're in a position to pay it back. Yosemar did previous work about how the source of funds for their acquisition of Everton is an insurance company called Haymarket. Haymarket is under the jurisdiction of the Utah Insurance Department. They've also revealed at Yosemar how another major source of 777 is a Bermuda-based reinsurer into which Haymarket and others have ceded assets. And yes, this is a flow chart. And yes, it's an absolute pain in the butt. But it's how these companies operate. The company called 777 Re is under the jurisdiction of the Bermuda Monetary Authority. So you've got one part of 777 being looked after in the state of Utah, another being looked at in Bermuda. Yesterday, both Haymarket and 777 Re, the two companies that 777 goes to get funds, part of that to be the funds available to try and get Everton. Both of those companies are under investigation for potential breaches of financial rules governing their own operations. So how they do things internally, both Utah and Bermuda are like, bruh. And in Bermuda, the company that is tied to the Bermuda interests and the Bermuda insurance, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, Bermuda has already acted to place the company into administrative control. The CEO has been removed. And when you're placed into administrative control, that means that direct access to assets, I'll get it out, direct access to assets totaling $3 billion in U.S. funds as of a little over a year ago, means that 777 can't get to it. In a pitch deck to investors, 777 outlined how the company that's tied to Bermuda anchors their investment strategy. And it talks about how funds, like I said, that's why I put the link in the Twitch pitch, because this is requested reading. There's a big flow chart. In Utah, Haymarket is also under investigation, suspected of breaching strict financial rules by Utah's insurance department. And they have the power to revoke a license or even put it on receivership. So the two pathways that 777 get their funding are currently being looked at and analyzed in Utah and Bermuda. Yosemar understands that the two investigations apparently are sharing information. So when you have two investigations, one in Utah, one in Bermuda, about two separate elements tied to a company where they get their funds to try and operate, Utah and Bermuda are talking to each other about this case. Yosemar they revealed in the piece that two subsidiaries of this group that wants to buy Everton took out loans over $11 million from a Utah LLC. They were charged at a rate of 52.5% interest. That ain't good. The average APR on a credit card in the UK is at about 24%, the US 21.5%, according to Yosemar Football. Both loans, the two loans totaling over $11 million, guaranteed by 777, and now the LLC in Utah that was charging the 52.5% interest is now going to court seeking damages to repay the loan in full, plus attorney's fees, costs, and interest. Kieran McGuire, who is a great source, if you don't follow him on the 280 character app, you should. And anytime he's quoted, it means something serious. Any lender, and this is Kieran McGuire, quote, any lender will first assess risk before agreeing to loan money to an individual or a corporation. That's normal. If you're charging at an interest at a rate of 52% APR, it's indicative that you have serious doubts about the borrower, as the borrower has been unable to convince anyone else to lend money at a better rate. Also means other lenders have walked away and that the borrower had few, if any, other people to turn to. Also, 777 is being pursued in the UK High Court for $30 million by three aircraft lessors over missed lease payments on 4 jets operated by something called Flair Airlines. They're a minority investor in Flair, and they're a budget carrier up in Canada. They provided guarantees on each of the 4 leases on the jets. The jets were repossessed about a year ago. In another case, 777 is being sued for breach of contract in the state of New York by Change Lending in a lawsuit which references Everton. The case, filed a week ago, concerns a $17 million purchase of preferred equity in 2 transactions back in 2022. 777 did not provide Change Lending with the balance sheet of the company in breach of the agreement. Hey, we'll lend you some money. We need your balance sheet. No, we still need your balance sheet. Hello? We need your balance sheet. Should be noted also by our friends at Yosemar. 777 has also yet to provide audited accounts to the Premier League, who are yet to grant approval for the Everton takeover. Mentioned in the court case back in October. New York Times reported October 18th of last year. The proposed purchase had stalled, and we talked about this back then, because 777 Partners failed to provide audited financial statements to a British government regulator that must approve the deal. That's not good. Also, in the article, on November 15th, Semaphore publishes a story. 777 was using insurance customers' premiums to fund risky investments in sports teams, payday lending, aviation, and other interests. 777's financial documents and investor presentations did not fully disclose the nature of the investments. Change is seeking damages, the New York entity. They're seeking damages in excess of $17 million U.S. because it's alleged 777 have not made the required dividend payments for 2023 on the company's preferred equity, and because Change has been forced to incur high-interest debt, sell assets at below market value, and slow originations to replace the liquidity 777 was supposed to provide. 777 was also sued for breach of contract by Amex over an unpaid corporate card bill of $324,000. How do you get a corporate card that has a credit limit of $324,000? How do you do that? 777 received a summons September of last year over an unpaid security deposit of $5 million relating to their New York office on Madison Avenue. Individual on December 12th brought a case against 777 in Miami alleging non-payment of $1.5 million promissory note from June of 2021 tied to low-cost airline tickets or to low-cost airlines. So Bermuda, Utah, New York. That's what you're staring at right now from 777 Partners as they want Everton. Alex Basine, dear Everton friends, do not fight to have 777 take over. Super duper shady. Going to saddle your club with debt and leave you for dead. Alex is not wrong. Hutch, how egregious do things have to be to get authorities in either Utah or Bermuda interested? Or both! Utah and Bermuda, and they're talking to each other. Utah and Bermuda are both mad, and they're talking to each other. Seriously. That's where we are with this. Hutch says you need some Cayman Islands banking, or at least to make sure that things are a little sideways. So that's where we are this morning with our friends at Everton. Modiflow, quoting 777 in a conversation with Alex Basine. No, we would never do that. Never. But yeah, our friends at Yosemar Football have done some tremendous investigative work, and they have been long on the tail of our friends at 777 and seeing what has been going on there. Milo is fine with Pro Rel, but if there wasn't, You may not be seeing all this financial tomfoolery. And we've talked about it in the past where, let's just look at the championship. You look at the championship right now in England. You look at the championship, and you look at the table. Let's look at the table. And let's go to, all right, so 24 teams in the championship. Let's go to the lower half of the table. Let's go to the lower half. Cardiff, Swansea, Stoke, Blackburn Rovers, Birmingham, Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday, QPR. How many is that? Cardiff, Swansea, Millwall, but it's been a long time. Stoke, Blackburn, Birmingham, Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday, QPR. 9 teams from 12 to 24 have been in the Premier League, say, the last 15 years. Bottom half of the championship. You go to League One, Portsmouth, before they had to go into full-blown administration before Michael Eisner decided to buy them. Derby County, we know what happened there with Wayne Rooney. Bolton was in the Premier League. Blackpool was in the Premier League. Wigan was in the Premier League. Reading was in the Premier League. And so the key here is that if you don't, and this is the hamster wheel that you get stuck on, is if you don't get back to the Premier League, if you're in the Premier League and you drop down and you don't get to go back within when the parachute payments disappear over 3 years, if you're not back in those 3 years, you're probably not getting back for a while, if it ever. Because you can't match the financing, but then you have owners that want to spend that much more, and that's what happened at Derby County, where they get caught in that hamster wheel of, okay, so if this didn't work, then we have to spend more, and you create more debt, and you're not successful, and you create more debt, and you're still not successful, and that hamster wheel continues, and it turns into what we're seeing at Reading, with an owner that doesn't give an ish and isn't held to any kind of a freaking standard to see what you need to do. Yeah, Preston North End was in the top tier in the 1800s. They also had David Beckham on loan. Alex, reminiscent of the Harry Morris Clear Media purchase attempt at Newcastle dragged along, just one shell company after another. Modiflow. 777 is disappointed in Emilio for his discrimination against people of the name Tom. You can fool more than just Toms. But that's where we are right now, financially. And you look at what Major League Soccer has done, the collective entity for the first 25, 26 years of operation has helped keep relatively everybody afloat. Obviously, there was the first Florida variant that didn't go very well, Tampa Bay and Miami. But since then, the collective has worked very well to make sure the league is stable. But you get to a time where you probably need to loosen the shackles a little bit if you want to make those next steps in the world marketplace outside of transfers and those kinds of things. But what we're seeing in England is those teams that are desperately trying to hang on. And we talked about the why for Everton and for Nottingham Forest. Forest's numbers for losses in a rolling 3-year period are different because the first 2 of those, they were in the championship trying to get up to the Premier League. Hutch, that would probably be a question for Texas franchises. Modiflow watching AFCON. Keep an eye on VAR for me. Possible penalty for Burkina Faso. It's been crazy in AFCON so far. I mean, did you see the story where Chris Hughton, who is in charge of the Ghanaian side, fan tried to take a swing at it? Ghana lose to Cape Verde on a stoppage time goal. Chris Hughton was accosted at the hotel as they were returning to the match. Sunday had some crazy results. Angry fan intercepted by security officials. Manager was also subjected to a volley of verbal abuse. Canadian team media liaison Henry Asante underselling the whole thing. The fan approached the coach to express his disappointment at the outcome of the game and told the coach to improve or leave the job. It was a verbal confrontation. There was no physical contact. Later, he was taken away by the security. But yeah, AFCON has been crazy. AFCON has had some wild results. And by the way, if you are interested in watching AFCON, there could be folks to let you know about VPNs and things, but you could also watch it on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. And you get AFCON, you get BN, CDO for the fans, Nuestra Tele, Teise, all those. Liga 1 Max, Brasileiro, Modiflo says we're going to VAR. Look out. You get all those at Fanatis. Jason got me hooked. I blame him. But you can be watching all the AFCON on Fanatis or wherever Modiflo has found it, and he can tell you where to continue to watch. So it looks like we're heading to VAR for our early matchup of the day in AFCON as things are just going crazy nuts, crazy stupid in AFCON. It was crazy on Monday. We had a day where it wasn't all that nuts, but now things are back to relative normal. This was the other piece of the story from Ben Fisher about Reading real quick. Number of redundancies, including coaching staff, including the number one assistant. Recently scrapped overnight stays on away trips. Remember, they were selling the defenders, but the coach, Ruben Sales, didn't know until they were already being sold. Several suppliers have frozen their accounts with the club. Player signed for Manchester United last summer. One league start away from triggering a £2,000 a month pay rise. Shockingly enough, he hasn't started a league match since the 7th of November. Reading insists the reason Savage has not started the games of late has nothing to do with his contractual situation. Sure. Give me a blanking break. Let's see. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo. We got to get there and get you ready for what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it. Remember, tomorrow is an SDH PM. Got to take care of some business on the family side of things, so I will not be in Office HD in the morning. Be back late in the afternoon. I'll let you know what the time is for all those things going forward. But yeah, it should be an SDH PM tomorrow. I will remind everybody, obviously, on social media in the Penal para Burkina Faso, according to Modiflo. Yes, Modiflo. Bless Fanatis forever and ever. Absolutely. So your gossip for the morning. Newcastle United call off their pursuit of Calvin Phillips because Manchester City wants a loan fee. As well as Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Everton, West Ham, and Juve are also interested in signing Phillips. PSG considering a move for Bruno Guimaraes, who has a £100 million release clause. Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to sign a top-class center forward who is at a similar level to Harry Kane once his deal to buy the 25% is ratified. Manchester United have discussed the possibility of bidding for Michael Olise at Crystal Palace and would be prepared to let Aaron Wan-Bissaka go back to Crystal Palace as a bit of a make-weight. Red Devils have also joined Bayern Munich in the race to sign Barca's Uruguayan defender Ronald Araujo. Netherlands, Matthijs de Ligt is not 100% happy at Bayern Munich, could leave the German club in the summer. Renato Sanchez could be on the move as PSG don't want him, and Roma don't want him either. Roma wants him to find another club. PSG don't want him. Jesse Lingard is open to moving to Major League Soccer with his new agents in talks with the Timbers. Well, there is a guy named Neville at coach. 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Chelsea could be interested in a short-term loan deal with Aston Villa over Jean Duran, former Chicago Fire forward Jean Duran, to you. Chelsea also keeping an eye on the league that we neither condone, endorse, cover with any great depth. could move for either Karim Benzema or Bobby Firmino, who joined Al-Ahly. Benzema is at Al-Ittihad. Chelsea also expected to demand the full £35 million release clause for any deal involving the permanent transfer of Ian Maatsen, who's on loan to Borussia Dortmund. Celtic are interested in Liverpool keeper Chalman Kelleher, but could face competition from Brentford, Brighton, and Wolves. Four-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Brentford looking into a loan move for Sergio Reguilon, having ended his loan spell at Manchester United. And Newcastle feared Joelinton could need surgery on his thigh, which could mean he would be out for the rest of the season. So cover your ears on that one, Modiflow. Okay. And so Modiflow is on fire this morning. Posting a story in the Discord about a scandal in Africa. Cameroon calls up a 17-year-old by the name of Nathan Douala. Claims to be 17 and he'll be at AFCON. From Juan Castro at Marca. Claims to be a teenager, many alleging he's far older than he claims to be. And there's a picture where he's got a lot of facial hair. According to the Cameroonian Fed, Douala was born in 2006. Called up by the national team, coached by Rigobert Song for AFCON. Douala, a midfielder for Cameroon's Victoria United, seems to be one of the young talents of Cameroon, presided over by Samuel Eto'o. We've talked about Samuel Eto'o in the past. One of the favorites with the players to win. Senegal enters as defending champ. So keep an eye on Wilfried Nathan Douala. No, he does not look 17. By any stretch of the imagination, he does not look like he's 17. All right. Where to watch it. Modiflow is full-blown into AFCON, as you should be. The major receding hairline for Abby is the trigger about him not being 17. So soccer on TV today, AFCON rolling. Burkina Faso, Mauritania, ending. Tunisia, Namibia is at noon. Mali and South Africa is at 3 o'clock. You watch the 3 o'clock game with Mali and South Africa, look at the Malian kids. Being in Espanol, your simulcaster, watch there. And once again, fanatisfntz.co/soccer down here. Goal TV continues their coverage of the Serie Rio de la Plata. Triple header, 3:45, 6, and 8:15. ESPN Plus has the Belgian Cup at 2:40, 5 matches in the FA Cup, 2:30 and 2:45, 3 matches in the Copa del Rey at 2, 3, and 4. Golazo Network at 12:30 has Asian Cup, Saudi Arabia, and Oman. You can catch Golazo Network either on Paramount Plus or on smart TVs that have Golazo Network directly. Paramount Plus has right now the second half of Thailand and Kyrgyzstan in the Asian Cup. Saudi Arabia, Oman on Paramount Plus at 12:30. Serie A has Juve and Sassuolo at 2:45. And like I said, since I won't be here in the morning, Wednesday, Africa Cup of Nations, noon and 3, BN and Espanol, Morocco, Tanzania, Congo, and Zambia. International friendly, Honduras and Iceland at 7:30. Gold TV has the Dutch Cup at 3 o'clock. Then Rio de la Plata again, Vélez Sarsfield, Belgrano, Nacional, and Peñarol. Belgian Cup, FA Cup, Copa del Rey again tomorrow. Asian Cup early. I won't be awake for it. And then the Clausura continues. Liga MX is Leon and Tigres. So that is your what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all that kind of stuff. So it has been a crazy morning on a bunch of fronts. And you had the FIFA awards, and apparently Pep Guardiola dropped an F-bomb. He was rather colorful in his acceptance speech. So congratulations to everybody who won a FIFA award last night. I did not. By the way, yesterday, Varsity Blues debuted 25 years ago. 25 years ago. I don't want your life. You got that. But, yeah, we'll be back at it tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out today, as you always do. And like I said, we'll be back at it again tomorrow. And it'll be at SDH PM. We'll go over all the news of the day. Keep an eye on Bartosz Sliege and his probable impending signing. Like I said, you got to go over medicals and make sure fees are paid and things like that. So keep an eye on that as camp continues with strikers and keepers and everybody at Mercedes-Benz. And they're doing all their toe touchies and all their drills and rondos there, indoors as opposed to outdoors. Once again, reminder, as Abby says, stay safe out there. It's the 3 Ps. Keep an eye on your people. Keep an eye on your plants. Keep an eye on your pets. Keep an eye on your 3 Ps, especially these next couple of days. It's going to be crazy cold. Keep your faucets turned on. Open the doors underneath so air can continue to circulate underneath. And just make sure that your pipes don't freeze, that you don't freeze, your plants don't freeze, and your pets don't freeze. We'll be back at it again, SDH PM tomorrow afternoon. We'll go over stuff. That's the official turn. And a reminder, once again, scarves are in from our friends at the Marshall Islands. Like I said, when I know price point, we'll let you know. Then the Abstermobile will handle a lot of the local shipping, and we'll go from there. But the scarves are in. Very, very cool to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands. So that's always a really cool thing, and it's a great story that we are continuing to follow here at SDH. So for everybody here at SDH, for Jarrett, for Nick, for Jason, I'm just John. Played safe. Everybody stay warm. Back at it again, SDH PM tomorrow, and we'll talk news and we'll talk stuff because that's what we do here every single day. Mucho plati, I'll play it safe. Back again tomorrow for an SDH PM.